Welcome, everyone, to the first episode of the Elbows Tight podcast. I'm your host, Travis. Man sitting across from me, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Is Jonathan Tier.
Woo! It's my man right there. So, giving you guys a heads up on what the Elbow Tight podcast is going to be like. The way it's going to start, we're usually going to have a guest with us. Tonight, it's going to be just Jonathan and I because this is the first episode, and we want to get you guys to know who we are. After that, we plan on having some guests, some people in the jiu-jitsu community, our community, and then typically after that, we would like to have just interesting people on the podcast, people with something to tell us some stories, and but the commonality is fitness, health, jiu-jitsu, stuff like that. Even just veterans that have cool day jobs now would be what we're looking for. One thing that we plan on doing too, each episode is having a beverage of the day. It could be whatever our guest bring in with us. It does not have to be alcoholic. If you are ever on the show, it does not have to be alcoholic. Today we are drinking a delicious beer. John, what we got today?
So we're drinking a Sun Glitter Peach IPA from Silver City Brewery here in Silverdale, Washington, an award-winning microbrewery.
It is absolutely fantastic. 6.5% alcohol. So we're pretty buzzed right now while we're making this podcast. But it's good. It's actually, if you guys like citrus IPAs, I highly recommend it. It is seasonal, right? Right, John? It's a seasonal beer.
Yeah, it's seasonal, so limited time only.
Yeah, so it's absolutely fantastic. So if you guys have an opportunity to check it out, please do so. But that's it for the beverage of the day. Like I said, today we're just drinking beer just because it's our first podcast and kind of breaking our nerves down. It's been a long week. Yeah. So, but if we have guests on that do not drink alcohol, that'll be perfectly fine. They're gonna bring their favorite water, their favorite Gatorade, whatever it is, But like I said earlier, today's episode is simply just gonna be getting to know each other. So, like I said, my name is Travis Model, originally from Las Vegas, Nevada. Joined the Navy when I was 19 years old. I am not, okay, let me rephrase that, because John says I'm not from Vegas.
That's true. He's from Minnesota.
I'm not from Minnesota. So here goes a debate that we have. I don't know how you guys feel about it at home, but I was born in Coon Rapids, Minnesota. My dad was there. I don't remember why he was there. I think he had just got out of the Air Force. He did 3 years in the Air Force, and my mom gave him the ultimatum of either the Air Force or me, and she was pregnant with me, so... my dad ended up separating. They went to Minnesota. I was born in the same hospital as my dad in the same city.
But you were born in Minnesota, correct?
Yes. Let me finish my story.
All right, go ahead.
Jeez. So I was born in the same hospital as my dad, and it was by my grandma's gynecologist, which I always thought was kind of cool and weird at the same time. But I was born in Minnesota, yes, and we left when I was like, I don't even know, like 2-3 months old. And then resided in Las Vegas, Nevada, pretty much the rest of my life until I was 19 years old, and I left for the Navy. But in my head, I say I'm from Vegas.
And you're a Vikings fan, correct?
And I'm a Vikings fan.
Minnesota Vikings? Okay, just check. Go ahead.
But so John says I am not from Vegas. I am from Minnesota. I say I was born in Minnesota, but I'm from Vegas. I represent Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
What about you, John? Where are you from?
I am from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Now, were you born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana?
I was born in Baton Rouge, and I am a New Orleans Saints fan, so I claim both. And I also was in the military, did 8 years from 97 to 2005.
So if you don't do the math, he's old.
Yeah. I'm a little older than Travis.
Just by a couple years. Just by a couple years.
Yeah.
So John and I met through our CrossFit gym, though. CrossFit 7 Cities. Shout out to CrossFit 7 Cities. It's an amazing place. If you guys are ever in Silverdale, Washington, whatever brings you out here, whether it's work or the beautiful sights, or it's Seattle and you take the ferry across, please come drop in. We are a very welcoming community. Made amazing friends. John is actually one of my groomsmen now for my wedding coming up in September, because we've had such a great friendship in the last couple years. So John and I actually didn't really start connecting very much until I was getting hired. Like we knew each other. We were friends.
Yeah,
I would say we were
sure.
friends before.
Yeah.
And then like this whole hiring process of me getting in where we work at. We won't drop exactly where we work at, but in case there's some stalkers out there. No, but John and Katie, they're
That'd be
both
my wife. Yeah.
Yeah, that's his wife. They both helped out quite a bit, getting me where I'm at now. Then we really became friends when we both went to Japan this last beginning of the year for the last couple months, and he's a great guy, you know.
About 3 months. Travis is great.
Yeah.
We definitely got to know each other a little better doing our jiu-jitsu down there.
That's
Especially
right.
because we only knew each other.
Yeah, yeah. It's always awkward walking into a place. You're like, who are all these people? I'm just stick with my friend that I know over here.
Yeah, and I think our first day was rolling with the international Japanese judo team, and a lot of them didn't speak English. So
Yeah, or they spoke very little English.
yeah,
And we kind of just knew little words here and there, like roll, jiu-jitsu,
yeah,
you throws, you know, stuff like that. And it was cool. They were great people, and it really put into perspective the amount of athleticism that goes into judo and jiu-jitsu and how different they really are. Because a lot of those judo guys didn't want to do judo. They're like, we want to do jiu-jitsu. So they would roll with the white belts and everyone, and it was cool because they were listening and they were taking pointers from everyone. They were very humble, and there was no egos involved if they got tapped by a white belt or anything. It was cool. So
and it was interesting to see that they were trying to work on their ground game.
Yeah.
And it really showed a lack of our game as far as stand up and how you take someone down. So that
Right.
was an interesting point.
And it really showed how not little ground that game they do. In case there's any judo people out there, but their ground game, like, it really put in perspective how different their ground game was. Because I was talking to one of our blue belts that are out there, who's also a black belt in judo, and he was talking about just the rule sets of judo, and it's like if your shoulders hit the mat hard enough, then they call it. Or if you get held down for a certain amount of time and there's no progress, they call the match. And if I'm incorrect, please let me know. But that's what he was telling us, and it was just crazy because I was like, well, what if you guys do submissions? And like, well, if you get tapped, it's the complete end of the match, you know. So if you get thrown hard enough, it could be 1 to 2 second match if they get it just right, and that's the end of it. So I thought that was kind of cool too.
Yeah, it was a unique experience.
Yeah, definitely. And there was a lot of them. There was
Yeah.
one guy that was from Sweden, I think it was, or Norway or something like that, and he was going to the international European judo competition. It was like on the internet and everything like that. Guy was super humble, but his black belt come talk to you before? His trainer.
Yeah, I think so.
He's like, be careful with this guy. All right, he's got to compete. He can't get injured.
Yeah,
he's only gonna roll or train with experienced guys. I was like, all right. I mean, I do not want to be that guy that he talks about in his interview if he does get hurt.
And I don't think we were going to hurt him. A little on me and Travis. We've been doing this for a little less than a year at that point.
Yeah,
in
yeah. I think it was like
jiu-jitsu
not
journey.
even. Yeah.
So if anyone's worried about getting injured, it was more us than them.
Yeah, I had one of the black belts talking about, like, you want to practice judo, and I was like, you want to practice judo?
Yeah.
Bro, I have like 0 judo experience.
How quick can I pull guard? Was what I was thinking.
how quick can I actually just fall to the ground and then hopefully get his legs?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, that was a great experience. And that was John and I. John was out there for 2 months. I was out there for 3.5 months. And so it was great. Some of the experiences that we had out there training were fantastic. We trained, 4 or 5 days a week?
Yeah, it was
some
fantastic.
Weeks. Which I think really helped out our jiu-jitsu game, and that honestly, very little amount of time because we were training so much.
Well, and we didn't have any families to, really spend time with at the point.
Yeah,
so
right.
A lot of those responsibilities were gone.
Yeah, true. I mean, I literally would get off work, go home, get something to eat, and then John and I were at the gym for 2 hours, 3 days a week at a minimum, just in class alone, and then Sundays or Saturdays, we'd be in the gym as well, training. And our Sunday sessions were
amazing.
Yeah, they were great. They were just John and I for the most part, and it was catch and release or positional, and they were like what 30, 45-minute rolls at a time.
Yeah, we have one roll that I think was about 25, 30 minutes, and it
Straight.
was funny
It was a straight.
we ended up completely on an opposite side of the room. We were the only people there.
Yeah.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, to give you guys a perspective on what it's the Hawk's Nest in Yokosuka, Japan on base. And they have these huge, think of like 4 wrestling rooms in one room, like just huge wrestling mats. John and I started in the right corner, and then we ended up in the back left corner. It was like completely diagonal catty corner from where we started. And but it was fun. Like it really put in perspective for me also how much I enjoy those just grinding long
for sure
training sessions and rolls and stuff like that. But it also makes me appreciate the 3 to 5 minute ones where I'm just getting my butt kicked by people, and it's very humbling, know. But every once in a while, it's good to have those very long ones. So
that was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was fantastic, and we got to meet some fantastic people. It was cool to see different games, I guess you could say, of jiu-jitsu. Not only in the brown belts that were there, the black belts, the purple belts, the blue belts, but also the white belts. Like seeing how other white belts, because John and I are only 4-stripe white belts, right? At the time of this podcast. If you're listening in this in the future and we're blue belts or still 4-stripe white belts or whatever, but at this time we're only 4-stripe white belts, training for coming up on a year. But it was really cool to see the other people that have been training just as long as us or shorter than us, and the variety and the difference of their game compared to ours, or how they attack compared to us.
And that was our first time experiencing the gym outside of our own.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So it's kind of like if you're in the CrossFit community, like going to your first competition and seeing actually how you stack up to people that you've never trained with. You have no idea who they are.
They don't know what you know and what you're prone to do during these roles.
Exactly, right? So that was a very cool thing to do also. And met amazing people, absolutely amazing people out there. It makes it easier to want to go back out there for the jiu-jitsu. For the jiu-jitsu, not so much for work.
Yeah.
But for the jiu-jitsu part, it definitely makes it a whole lot easier to want to go out there and enjoy that. But yeah, it was a great experience. I had a blast. Thank you, John, for telling me about it. I was in the hiring process of getting the job. I didn't even have a soft job offer.
Yeah, I don't think you had the offer yet.
I think we were still writing my resume, and John's like, "Hey, so let me do the. Hey, so no."
I was being a little selfish, hoping he'd go to Japan so I'd have someone to train with.
Yeah. So we he in the hiring process, I was like, "Yeah, man." He told me we have a position open for Japan if you want it. I'm like, yeah, I want to go to Japan. To get paid to go to Japan for 3.5 months? Absolutely, sign me up. And to tell you the truth, I don't even think I talked to Lauderdale about it before I said yes. I'm pretty sure I said yes, and then I said, hey, babe, I love you. You're an amazing woman, but I'm going to Japan for 3 months. So and she was completely understandable. And I told her it was for the money, because as a DOD, you make good money out there and whatnot. So
and absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah. And how do you think she got the ring? I mean, I wasn't gonna be able to afford to buy a ring for her by simply not working my butt off.
Yeah, a lot of big decisions on that trip.
It was a lot of big decisions. It was a lot of fantastic stuff. So I definitely enjoyed it. So what made you get into jiu-jitsu? I don't think I know it's on. So we have like a little questionnaire sheet that John has been studying, but I don't think I've ever actually heard why he got into jiu-jitsu. You said you did a little bit of jiu-jitsu back in your early 20s, right?
Well, younger than that. I went to Guthrie Job Corps when I was 18, and I was doing kickboxing then with a buddy, and we had a security instructor who, we were kind of troubled teens at that point. We were all Guthrie Job Corps, and he said if anyone had an issue, he wanted them to step out on the mat and they can resolve it. And so he was looking for volunteers. I volunteered. I got on the mat with him, and probably in 2 seconds, he had me totally isolated. I couldn't move. I was totally done. I've never had that happen before, and that was pretty much my first experience with jiu-jitsu.
Then you fell in love with it right then and there.
Yeah, it was great. I didn't really pursue it at that point, but I did think to myself, I was like, well, I've done a couple things. I did taekwondo when I was 12.
I did not know that.
through
I did not know you.
14.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
And I did boxing a little bit when I was in the Navy.
I knew that.
It wasn't literally on a team. It was more like off the books boxing, but it was great. We had a Golden Gloves guy there that would teach us some stuff, and his name was Eric. Shout out to Eric if he ever hears this, but
Thank you,
he was
Eric.
a great guy. But the reason I got into jiu-jitsu older is I was looking for a challenge. I'd been doing CrossFit for a while. I actually moved away and really missed it, and we came back, and I jumped right into the CrossFit, and I don't know if it's because I was a little bit older. I'm in my 40s now. But I noticed it was a little bit more wear and tear than I was looking for on my body. But I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to work out. And jiu-jitsu was kind of like chess. I enjoyed seeing how much I could take and how well I could think while under that kind of pressure. And I have 3 daughters. I wanted them to see something that I'm doing that I could possibly get them into to help them in the future.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's Professor Al that has. I was stalking his Instagram, and he had a picture of his laundry room, and it was. Every single member of the family had a gi hanging up, and it was like,
great.
Yeah, fantastic, right? Absolutely fantastic. I would love if we did that. But as you know, it's like one of those things. It's like if your family does, he said, families that train together stay together, right? 100% agree. But in my eyes, it kind of goes a little bit deeper than that. If your family does anything remotely physical or challenging together as a family, that's something that you can have to connect with. I feel like it just makes the family that much stronger, right? And if you can learn how to kick people's butts while doing it,
yeah,
so.
Absolutely. And it's a little peace of mind too with, those of us that have jobs that travel. I'm not always going to be there for my kids and my wife, so I'd like to have a little peace of mind if I can get them involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. That's why I wanted Lordell to kind of do the woman's self-defense, because Lordell is a good-looking woman. She is strong and probably bigger than I am, right?
a little bit,
muscular-wise. But at the end of the day, like, someone could easily hurt her if she didn't know how to defend herself, right? Like, all the muscle in the world isn't going to stop someone from grabbing her and, kind of manhandling them if they wanted to, right? And that was another huge thing that opened up my eyes when we first started jiu-jitsu. Like, I thought I kind of knew how to defend myself.
Me too.
Right? I thought I thought I knew how to defend myself. And then Cody Smith, the owner of CrossFit 7 Cities, one of my best friends, he had a hold of me, and I felt like a man-child. He did whatever he felt like doing, put me in whatever position, and I don't think I've ever tapped so many times in my life. But it also excited me because it made me realize the potential that a human being can have in knowing how to defend themselves and manipulating someone else to do what they wanted to. And I want that for Charles, and I want that for Lordell as well. You know what I mean? So, because I won't always be there for Lordell. I won't always be there for Charles, right? And people are going to pick on Charles because it's a natural thing in life, right? And a kid knowing self-defense, even just a little bit nowadays is better than nothing.
Well, knowledge is power really comes out in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, right.
You'll learn that real quick.
Absolutely.
Those that have the knowledge, you feel it right off the bat.
Yeah, right. You're like, I didn't know I could roll that way.
I've never felt so small.
Yeah, right. Even rolling against smaller people, like rolling against Marcus in Japan. He was a purple belt out there. He trained out of Hawaii for quite some time. Shout out to Marcus if you're listening to this. But Marcus was a smaller guy than me. He probably weighed 160, 170 pounds maybe. And he was probably 5'7", and he, I'm not making fun of you, John, for being 5'7", but he was honestly the hardest roll out of anyone that
He was great.
He was fantastic, man. Super fluid, like he's the type of guy that will talk trash to you, but like like subliminally talk trash to
Yeah.
you in there. You know, he's passive aggressive when he's talking to you during rolls. He won't even pay attention to you during a roll. He will be talking to someone else on the sideline
They're
as
telling jokes, stories.
yeah, right.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's telling stories on the other side. You're like, is this dude really talking about what he wants for dinner later? And I'm over here with my
Trying
leg
to hang
behind my
on.
head. Yeah. I'm over here like thinking like this is no fun, man.
For sure.
Yeah. So people like him, you know, he's smaller, not as strong as me, right? Not saying I'm super strong, but there was a definitely
He is though.
Oh my god. But definitely there's a physical difference there, and meant absolutely nothing when it came down to technique and actually performing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Meant absolutely nothing. I could muscle through just about everything, and he had an answer for everything, man. It was incredible to be a part of. It really put it in like I keep saying, it really puts in perspective, like you just said, knowledge is power when it comes to it. If he knows what I'm going to do, he knows exactly where to go or how to put me in a position before I even know I'm going to be there or how I'm going to react. He knows how I'm going to react before I do.
Their baiting's great.
Yeah, baiting is great.
Here's an opening.
Yeah.
No, it's not really.
Yeah, I remember when we first started, Cody would get us all the time with darces because he'd be sitting in mount and he would put his leg over your head and then he would wait for you to pass the leg, and then boom, he darces you. He got me so many times with that, and now I don't even pass the leg. I'm like, whatever, man. You can just hold the leg there. I don't even care anymore, you know.
I think every time I see an opening, it's a trap, and just don't even look at that one.
Yeah,
the first one's a trap.
Admiral Akbar, it's a trap. You know, that's what it feels like. But yeah, no, it's cool. I definitely enjoy it. So, did you play any other sports growing up?
Flag football, that was about, and I guess some softball. Those were the only ones that were organized. Everything else was, neighborhood football.
Yeah,
basketball,
same.
disc golf.
Yeah, growing up, I wasn't big into team sports. I played a lot of like street basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Really, what my bread and butter was, man, I have really bad grammar. Was like skateboarding, riding bikes, rollerblading. I was big into all that stuff.
I tried to skateboard. I was just absolutely horrible at it.
I mean, the only way to get good at it is to do it. You know?
That's what I keep hearing.
Yeah, it's like jiu-jitsu.
Right.
But so, and then growing up being a skateboarder, riding bikes, all that stuff, you kind of become an individual because there's no one else on a skateboard besides you. If you don't land a trick, well, it's your own fault, right? So that's what kind of drew me. I wrestled for a semester in high school. Yeah, literally, it's one semester, I promise. I wrestled for my freshman year, the first half of my freshman year in high school.
Yeah, you retained it so well.
I don't know. I don't know where that came from. But that was it. And when I tell people that, people are, to me, I don't see a difference because it's just how I am, right? I don't feel a difference because that's just how I react. But other people are like, man, I could have thought you wrestled for way longer than that.
I just think it's how fluid you guys are. You understand where your body is.
Yeah.
You understand, like, how to stay close to someone and all that, like, right away.
Right.
Where someone totally new is just trying to figure that out.
Yeah, right. No, I agree. Yeah, that's definitely something. But I would attribute that more to my body awareness to skateboarding, to tell you the truth. Because being able to catch yourself off balance from doing a trick, to me, is what I attribute my base and stuff to more, because I know how to catch myself from falling because of skateboarding. That's
you know what, your base is really good. I think a lot of people say that every time they roll with
I
it,
appreciate that.
they have a hard time getting you off.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, that's what I hear too. That I hear people talk a lot about my base. But the thing is I feel my base is strong, but I can't finish a lot of things. We talked about it earlier, right? I feel one of the weaknesses in my game is I get right there and I'm like a puppy with a toy.
Excited.
I'm so excited for the toy. I like throw it in the air and then it's gone, right? And I'm like, crap, I lost it. You know, I get so excited when I get in these positions, and I hear Coach George, I hear Professor Al, I hear Cody, and like, calm down, do this, do that. I'm like, yeah.
Right.
It never plays out, So, What do you think's your biggest part of your jiu-jitsu game right now? I know in Japan we were playing a lot of just baiting and relaxing. What do you feel like it now?
I'm not even sure, man. At this point, I think maybe as far as like a strength that I feel like I have is purely just kind of defensive, using my legs, kind of keep distance.
Yeah.
Weakness, I feel like might just be finishing.
Yeah.
I don't know. For most people, I'm 5'7" and about 170 pounds, and I feel like I struggle a lot with the bigger guys.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like that's a big weakness. Either my technique probably needs some refinement.
Yeah.
Or just a change mentally in my strategy on how I should roll.
Right. Yeah. And we've been talking about that lately because being a 40+ jiu-jitsu practitioner, there's different. You have to look at things differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, like you can't go 150% 100% of the time.
Even though I want to, because I'm a highly competitive person.
right. And, but your body's like, no, not.
Yeah,
so
my
much.
body's breaking down.
Right.
So I'm like, I just can't roll that way.
Right. Exactly.
Even though I want to.
Right. In your mind, you're like, my mind is telling me no.
Yeah, absolutely. And I still try to give a good showing for the younger guys, but
right.
it's still tough.
Yeah, and it's. Roy Harris, right? Roy Harris talks about 40+, and how you have to, bite your tongue and just swallow your pride a little bit and not be
absolutely.
so aggressive, right? And a good person that I look at that's 40+ is Billy Adams.
Amazing, yeah,
absolutely phenomenal, right? Guy is, I believe he's 50. I don't want to say exact age, but he's a little bit older. You could not tell. Man is in incredible shape. Probably the most flexible person I know besides
George.
Besides George, yeah. Coach George. But he's fluid. He's really, really good. It's kind of hard to describe. Like if you do jiu-jitsu, right? You just roll with people. You're like, man, I hope I get to that point, right? Where it's fluid. Like I know where I want to go. I know where I want to move, right? And his flexibility at his age is amazing. It's
absolutely.
He's like, oh, I do hot yoga. I'm like,
well, sign me up. Where's this hot yoga?
What kind of hot yoga? Because I start doing yoga and I get hot. Does that count? Like
right.
I'm sweating a little bit just doing yoga in my room, some Ramwad, And you look at people like that still train 2-3 times a week, still incredible flexibility, strength is still there even at an older age. But Billy is smart, right? He knows he's not in his 20s. He knows he's not in his 30s, right? And so what does he do? He picks and chooses the people he wants to roll with.
Yeah, absolutely.
He doesn't roll with every single person. And Billy, if you're listening to this and you do that, and it kind of comes off not saying in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
And if you do it that way, we're not trying to call you out. It's smart, right? And John and I talk about this.
Yeah,
John might need to start staying away from the young bucks.
I think at this point I have a broken pinky toe, a broken left finger, and a shoulder that's about to get surgery.
Yeah, right. So and not all of it's from jiu-jitsu, but a lot of it is from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, absolutely.
In Japan, another funny story. In Japan, I don't know if you guys have seen the movie with Leonardo DiCaprio when he's getting mauled by a bear, right? Where he's just like trying to play dead and the bear's just going to town on him. Just absolutely. I saw John Tier go through that scene with a wrestler. Like he was probably in his early 20s. This guy looked like he was trying to murder John. And I was sitting on the sideline like, John, if you need help, blink twice.
And I'm like, come on, jump in. What are you waiting for?
He's like, punch this dude in the face. Dude, get this man off me. John got up after the 5 minutes, looked at me, and started limping away. This guy went so hard.
I did survive the 5 minutes.
He did survive, yeah. And I think, and you didn't see, but from where I was sitting, that guy was getting frustrated. He was getting frustrated because every time he would make a move, John would put him back in half guard, would put him back in guard, and then the other dude would just muscle out of it or would smash pass, and John just had an answer for it because obviously the other guy's inexperience.
It's a good lesson though when you do that and you go against someone that has that much energy and they're just going full bore. It really tests you.
Right, and And I forgot who I was talking to the other day, but like I enjoy rolling with people that are experienced and we can have a good training session, like Professor, like George, like Cody, right?
Yeah.
Like guys that are very highly skilled. But at the end of the day, it's good to get that fresh, brand new white belt that has no idea what they're doing and just is trying to take your head off, right? Because then it's unpredictable.
Oh,
right?
yeah, for
It's
sure.
100% unpredictable. You don't know what they're going to do. They don't know what they're
There's
going
no
to do.
complacency there. Because
Yeah.
you don't know what's happening.
Yeah. Right? So you really have to test your game or bait them in exactly where you want them to go. And I enjoy roles like that as well because they are beneficial. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But John, you might want to start staying away from those roles, man.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think. Well, so this is what John is saying. John's like, you know what? I'm just gonna go a little bit harder on people. You know, I'm about 50-60% right now. Okay, I'm gonna start going 80-90%.
I think I'm gonna have to bump it up to 80.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I think
We'll see how that goes. I think you're gonna get your 80%, and then you're gonna be limping away because you went too hard on yourself.
We're gonna find out tomorrow morning.
If you're listening to this, it's a Friday night. John and I are 4 or 5 beers deep, and so he probably won't show up tomorrow.
I'm gonna show up.
He's not gonna show up tomorrow. No, yeah. So.
Tune in for the next one to find out.
So yeah, but I would love to have George and Professor and them on this, and seeing what they have experienced and how they deal with situations like that, right? Because obviously sorry for the can. Obviously they have experienced it many a times over.
And it would be nice to hear those stories.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
100%. And I want to be able to hear what it's like for other people as they were white belts. You know, like what made you get into it? You know, like why did you start doing it? You know, what was it like the first time you got a stripe? Or
yeah, what are the trials and tribulations that you went
Yeah,
through?
absolutely.
When you hit those roadblocks, or is this right for me?
Absolutely, because everyone goes through it.
Absolutely,
everyone goes through it. I was talking to Blaine. He was our brown belt, one of our brown belts out in Japan, and he was talking to me about being, picking up blue belt, and he asked me, he's like, well, "How long you been doing it?" I was like, "Oh, I'm coming up on a year." He's like, "Oh," he's like, "Okay," he's like, in my mind, a blue belt you get after a minimum of 2 years, right? 2 years is quite some time for some people as a white belt. I would think 2 years is quite some time for myself as a white belt. Not saying I should be a blue belt, but what I'm saying is 2 years for a beginner belt, 4 stripes or whatever, kind of like you start getting your mindset like, man, what else do I need to do to get my blue belt, right? And I feel like that's another reason why they talk about how people quit when they get their blue belt, right? Because George was at his blue belt for 5 years.
I know, it's amazing.
Cody was at his blue belt for I think 3 to 4 years. Billy's been a blue belt for I think he said 12 years, right? So people get really discouraged.
We put so much into it.
Yeah, absolutely. You put your heart and soul into every single training session. Whether every training session, I'm like, man, do I really want to go? And I'm like, absolutely, I want to go. And then I get there, I'm like, man, I should have stayed home. Sometimes like, man, I should have stayed home, or I could have did something else. But then I'm only getting better. I'm only making myself better, right? And I'm putting my heart into it. So when you think that you're not getting recognized for it, it's disheartening, absolutely, right? But 2 years, I was like, man, I could see having to wait 2 years for a blue belt, like completely understanding the basics, right? It could take some time for some people, and then doing a reverse triangle from side control and then with the Kimura grip, it's like, I wonder.
Well, and I think one thing we've noticed is, and we've rolled with them, but there's blue belts and there's blue belts.
Right.
And I've rolled with some blue belts. I'm like, man, where is their black belt? Because that guy was amazing.
Right. Absolutely. And this is, side note, this is not trash talking anyone that is
absolutely not.
a higher belt or anything like that. But even in the jiu-jitsu community, right? Like there's world-class competition-based black belts, right? And if you disagree with this, I'm sorry. But there's the world-class, world-ranked competition black belts. They're completely different than never competed. Not saying they're not as good, they're not as knowledgeable or whatever, right? Everyone can get caught, but there is a difference. There's a difference between someone that does CrossFit recreationally, right? They just want to stay fit, and there's a difference between someone that competes and trains for the games,
Absolutely.
right? There's a difference between Katie Tier and a Casey Campbell, right? They both do CrossFit. They both have the common theme of fitness and health, right? But they are just different paths.
Yeah, it's different. Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
There's people have their strengths, people have their weaknesses, right? And we're not trash talking people that
absolutely
are blue belts,
not.
You know what I mean? Especially as white belts, no disrespect to anyone, but there is a difference, right? There's people that you're like, man.
And what I mean was like George,
George, absolutely.
In his blue belt, I'm like, oh my God, he is absolutely amazing. Like,
incredible.
I can't even roll with him. He's just demolishing me.
Every time I talked about George to anyone, I was like, this guy should at least be a purple belt.
To me, he's like the echelon of a blue belt. Like,
100%.
If I was a blue belt, I wish I could be like him. And,
when he did his test. So shout out to Coach George at Pacific Northwest Jiu-Jitsu. He just recently got promoted to purple belt, and I could not be any more happy.
Me too.
Could not think of anyone else in this world that deserved a purple belt. He was incredible, and what made it even more cool was watching him take his test, right? Because Professor was calling stuff out, and I was like, man, maybe I don't. Maybe I don't deserve a blue belt.
I need to stay right up on here with these stripes.
I'm a 6-stripe white belt. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and keep all 6 of these stripes.
Yeah, for sure.
But watching something like that was great, and it really opens your eyes to the amount of knowledge that he does have, so which was awesome, and I would love to continue to see more tests like that. And
that was amazing.
Yeah, right, absolutely. And one thing I enjoy is watching Roy Dean videos.
Yeah, love Roy Dean.
Roy Dean, great. What is he? 3rd degree black belt. We both subscribe to his Roy Dean TV, and he has his like blue belt demonstrations, purple belt demonstrations, right? So
his requirements,
yeah, and he has the blue belt demonstration, the blue belt requirements 2.0. I've watched that a couple times. There's still some stuff in there that I'm like, oh man, I actually should probably work on that.
I need to work on that.
Yeah, right. But then watching people's demonstrations for their belt is so cool. So cool, right? Because they have the whole, kind of like how we did it, right? Demonstrate these movements. And then once you're done demonstrate these movements, all right, time to train, right? Time to spar, time to start tapping people or getting tapped, whatever, right? But it's in my eyes, when I see stuff like that, you're not losing if you're getting tapped during your demonstration, during your test, right? People get caught, right? It doesn't matter. To me, it's just showing your game, how you're doing and whatnot. So, like George didn't tap every person that he went up against, right? And he still got his purple belt, so it's okay. You don't have to tap everyone that's lower belt than you.
And it's such a test of watching how exhausted they are.
Oh my gosh.
They're still going.
Still going.
The heart, when you watch that, you're like, man.
Absolutely.
I wish I could give you something to help you out.
Yeah. Here goes a Snickers bar.
Yeah, like,
you might need this. Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And then George, I heard a little sidebar between George and Professor, and George is like, hey, I just want to let you know, I would have kept going until you told me to stop. Even though he was exhausted, he was tired, he got,
visibly.
You saw him and his gi was drenched. Well,
this is the first time I've seen him tired. Like, normally we roll, and it's like he's never tired.
And then he's like, taps you on the shoulder, he's like, good job. He just walks away like nothing happened. You're laying on the floor spread like it's like a snow angel, like, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he didn't back down from a single person. He tried his hardest, and it was cool. Honestly, it was great to watch. So, seeing things like that, it makes me think, like, some days I feel like I could be a blue belt. some days I feel like I should probably go join the kids class,
For sure.
because I'm like, man, I'm just getting my butt kicked today. But once again, it's like CrossFit. I relate a lot of things to jiu-jitsu to CrossFit because there's a lot of common things, a lot of common themes, mindsets, how you approach something. It's that whole athletic. I don't even know what to say. Like mindset. I just keep the only thing I come is mindset right now. But it's the same thing with jiu-jitsu, right? It's all about how you approach it and how you're going into it. If you're open to learn and whatnot, it's awesome. So I think that was just kind of like a ramble off to the side.
I think you're good. To me, it's like a mental tenacity.
Yeah, that's good. That's
like,
a good one.
How much can you take, regardless if you're doing it right or not?
Right.
But like, can you mentally stay in the game? Can you keep coming back? That's what it is for me.
Yeah. Oh man, I had it at the tip of my tongue. Exercise. Anyways, we'll go on. Yeah. We'll think about it later. But
if I don't like something, or if I'm feeling like, man, you know what, I just don't like doing this. Normally, that means it's challenging me.
Right.
And, and that's why I'm not liking it. So that just makes me go do it.
Yeah, exactly. And at the beginning of jiu-jitsu, when you first start off, it's really like we've had some friends that started it and got discouraged very fast within a couple classes, because it is very difficult. It's a very, very humbling experience and journey to go through.
Yeah, and personal bubbles are burst. A lot of people have never experienced that before.
Yeah, right. Like when I was in wrestling, I always tell this story, but we were in wrestling practice and basketball team in high school were practicing basketball in the stadium, and our wrestling room was right outside the gym. And our door was open and practice was going on. And a couple of the basketball guys came over and said, man, they looked in there like, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I could roll with another sweaty guy on the floor. And in my head, it's like, to tell you the truth, that's not what you're thinking about.
Not at all.
Not in the slight. At no point in my jiu-jitsu experience or wrestling or grappling or any of my journeys have I ever thought, man, this guy is really sweaty. I need to get out of here. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, I kind of have, but it's never discouraged me for fighting for my life. No. That's fight or flight jumps in real quick, and you forget all about stinky feet. Who took a shower today?
I don't even think who's watching. That's something that used to bother me.
Yeah,
now
absolutely.
My kids or Katie, I'm watching. And I don't care. Yeah.
No, I was training with Billy yesterday, and I didn't even know Lordell was in there.
Right.
Because I was so zoned in on Billy and what was going on with Billy and I. And he looks over at me. He's like, oh, your fiance is here. And I look over. I was like, oh, my God, it's my fiance. I was like, hopefully I'm looking good right now. You know what I mean?
And what do they all tell us? People come and watch, and they're like, man, it's surreal because everyone on the mat is quiet.
Yes.
There's no noise.
Yeah.
It's quiet, and everyone has intense concentration on their face.
Right.
And I think that sums it up. I mean, that's what we're doing. It's like
absolutely.
This huge chess game.
Absolutely. Physical chess is the best way to describe jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's how I feel about
it. My tattoo artist, one of my very, very good friends, Todd Smithson, down in San Diego, I was talking to him when I first started jiu-jitsu, and he was the one that first told me it was physical chess. You're waiting for one person to make a move so you can counter it, right? That's really what it is, and hopefully the other guy doesn't have a counter for your counter, kind of thing. And it's great. I absolutely love it. There's not one thing I do not like about jiu-jitsu. Getting tapped, I don't mind getting tapped. I don't mind.
I don't either now, but I think I did when we first started because I took it as a loss.
Yeah, it's no.
But now I realize, unless you're trying new things, you're not going to grow at it.
Absolutely.
And when you're trying them, you're most likely going to get tapped.
You're going to fail.
Because you don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You're going for it.
Right. The Gracies, I was watching one of the Gracie videos. It was just like one of their montages. And they said, which something that really stuck with me was, my opponent has tapped me not because I'm worse than them. It's just they've failed more than I have, right? I didn't lose to them because they're better than me. They've just failed more than I have, right? And it's true, right? You're only gonna get better the more you do it, mat time, right? And you're gonna get tapped no matter who you are, no matter how good you are. There's always gonna be someone to catch you. You're gonna get caught. One day you're gonna get caught, whether you expect it or not, right? A purple belt that's been doing it for 7 to 8 years can get caught by a white belt that has been doing it for 3 to 4 months, right?
It's true.
It's true. It happens.
Absolutely.
It absolutely happens. I have tapped white belts. I have tapped blue belts. I have tapped purple belts. I've never tapped a brown or black. Not going to claim that one.
I was
yet.
waiting on that. I was like, oh, hold on there. I never heard this one.
I've come close to both,
Yeah.
right? And it's just, once again, it's my inexperience not knowing how to finish it. And I get so excited. I'm like,
Right.
So, but it's one of those things, right? So, it's crazy to think about and to go through, because you never feel so helpless in your life until you can't get away from someone, until they're just completely handling you the way they want to. And it really is an eye opener.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. And after that first week, I was like, whew, I better keep up with this. I ain't trying to get my butt kicked anymore in the streets.
I think that first week I was like, am I claustrophobic? I've never been claustrophobic.
Yeah.
But I'm starting to feel like that when I'm getting smothered.
Yeah. Well, pressure. If
Yeah.
you've never felt pressure before, to the point where you think you're going to die.
Hey, when you're tapping on just pressure.
Just pressure.
Which I think I did the first month.
Cody's neon bellies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cody Smith, if you're listening to this podcast, your neon belly was my kryptonite. And so when I was in jiu-jitsu or doing jiu-jitsu in Japan, I was like, hey, come here. How do I get out of this neon belly so I'm not getting squeezed to death against the ground and a knee?
Yeah.
You
What
know
was
I
I
mean?
doing? Can I get the biggest people here to spar with so I can work on
Yeah,
it? Rob,
yeah.
those guys.
Right,
you know,
right.
Like, let me
Blaine.
get the big ones.
Yeah, let me get the guys
The
that are
220s, 240.
Yeah,
absolutely.
almost 2-3 times my size. Now what I want you to do is absolutely smother me.
And what I realized, it didn't really help, but it was a good experience.
Yeah. I ended up just getting smothered even more, but at least I felt like I was doing something.
Yeah. You get used to it.
Yeah. Right, and that's the thing, right? Is you get used to being uncomfortable. You get comfortable in the uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
Once again, a very common theme in CrossFit, getting comfortable in the uncomfortable, pushing yourself through that physical barrier, through that mental barrier. And honestly, I think it's way more of a mental barrier than it is a physical barrier. I think mindset plays so much more into jiu-jitsu than physical aptitude and capabilities, right?
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
If you can put your mind to it and be okay with really crappy situations and fight through getting tapped, not knowing what to do when you're in a dominant position. That is probably the biggest complaint I hear from brand new people, right? Oh, I get him out. I just don't know what to do. I take their back. I just don't know what to do. I'm like, I've been doing this for a year. I don't even know what to do.
I'm totally with you. Absolutely.
So that's kind of like one of those things. I completely forgot where I was going with that, though.
No, you're good. I
Yeah.
mean, I think whenever I give and like I said, it's not been that long for us. It's been a year. But I
Right,
think that
right.
helps us because I've scoured the internet looking for advice when you're brand new, you're a white belt, and you're trying to deal with the issues. You get a lot of it, but
Yeah,
you don't really have – most of the people giving that advice now are much further along in their journey. And
absolutely.
they're reflecting back on it at the point where they're giving the advice.
Yeah,
But now that I'm in it, if I give that advice to someone that's brand new, man, I just tell them, just focus on surviving.
yeah,
Not on the submissions. Focus on
absolutely.
reversing and
Yeah.
getting out of positions and just surviving.
Yeah. I could not agree with that anymore, right? A lot of what we run into, especially in Japan and even in our own school, not saying that we don't learn fantastic things in our school, because we do. Some of the stuff we learn is amazing. But a lot of brand new people do jiu-jitsu don't know how to elbow escape.
No, they don't.
They don't know how to trap and roll, right? They don't know how to wizard. They don't know how to do a single leg takedown or how to defend, how to sprawl, right? And which I think I kind of think like we should do kind of how we don't have the capacity or the members to do a beginner's jiu-jitsu and then kind of roll them into kind of like an on-ramp course for
Right.
like a CrossFit.
Yeah,
Once again, going
that's
back
a good
to it,
idea,
right?
Yeah.
Like, this is mount. this is side control, right? This is S mount. This is knee on belly. These are simple things how to get out of them. This is an Americana. This is a Kimura. Things like that. I don't think we have the capabilities of doing a class like that, but I still think we need to find a way for some people to get those fundamental things in there. And I think that's where people like you and me, even though we're, once again, 4-stripe white belts, we have more experience, right? So teaching people the little bit of knowledge we know is a whole lot better.
And it's the small stuff, just watching them trying to do a forward roll when they've never seen it before.
Right, exactly.
And
you're like,
whoa, man, you don't want to do it that way.
Yeah, you're going to break a neck, man. Trust me, I've done it before.
Yeah, absolutely. Even the small things.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, so that was the nice thing about Japan. We show up early and we'd grab the other white belts like, hey, these are some of the drills we do at home. This is a simple passing the guard drill. This is a simple forward roll to break fall or whatever. You know what I mean? So,
which was another unique thing. We do a pretty good warm up at our facility, and the one time in Japan we noticed, there it's a little bit different. We actually didn't pay to go to a class there, which I thought was amazing,
fantastic, and it was world class.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely amazing. It was so different for me to see somebody that loves something so much that they had a group that was teaching it for free.
And they were good. Like, it was good.
Absolutely. But there it was a little bit different. You showed up and you kind of warmed up on your own, and then you went into class. And that was interesting. I kind of liked it. I mean, I like both ways, but that was interesting.
Yeah, we have this conversation, right, outside of the gym. Kind of like how I enjoy group warm-ups because it makes me warm up, right? It forces me to warm up. But in Japan, I got so accustomed to showing up on my own, getting warm on my own, knowing how I felt and how I wanted to get warmed up, and my capabilities and my limits for the day physically, right? And like you said, you kind of feel bad sometimes because you're like, look, I can't do the Granby roll.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen.
I let people pass me up, and I feel like, man, I feel like I'm skipping out. But you know what? Honestly, I can't do it.
Yeah, and it's okay, right? Like, you shouldn't feel ashamed because you can't do it. You physically just can't do it, right? So that's one thing that we talk about all the time is the warm-up, right? I enjoy a good warm-up sometimes. No offense, people out there. Some of y'all got some long warm-ups. Some of y'all got some warm-ups where I'm like, dang, are we going to roll today? Like, what is going on in here, right?
Right.
I like personally good 15, 20-minute warm-up and then jumping into some technique. And, in Japan, the way we did it, you guys might hear us talk about Japan a lot because, it was a
big impact.
Yeah, I was about to say, in the short amount of time that we've been doing jiu-jitsu, it was a huge impact on us, right? But the way we did it was minute 1 to hour 1 was technique. It was probably 45 minutes, 30 to 45 minutes, depending on which one was teaching in the class. 30 to 45 minutes was technique. And then it was spar, right? Sometimes it was 15, 20 minutes of technique. King of the Hill, 20, 25 minutes of King of the Hill. Half an hour of sparring, so it was a whole lot of sparring. But one common thing that we kept talking about was Trey. If you're listening to this, once again, shout out to Trey out in Yokosuka. He would play Monday tied into Wednesday tied into Friday. You know what I mean? Monday of the following week, we kind of recuperated or went over what happened last week, and then maybe built into it, or went to a different way that could be, another variable.
And I think that was the first time we experienced that.
Yeah,
and that was interesting. I'm kind of a slow learner, no problem admitting that. So for me, that was like, man, this was fantastic.
Yeah, and it was very simple. Blaine, once again the brown belt that was out there, he was great on. He was another country guy. He was in his mid-30s, and he would admit, he's like, my jiu-jitsu is simple. He's like, I'm going to smash you. Like, I'm going to smash past you. I'm going to put pressure on you. And so the way he sees his jiu-jitsu, he could dumb it down for people that have no idea anything about what he's talking about, which is cool because there's a lot of things in there that were we did some technical stuff out there, some De La Hiva, some the samurai roll and stuff like that, but it's technical, but they were able to dumb it down for us, right? Like I'm like, I don't understand this lasso stuff. Remember, we were always talking about like, I don't want to learn this lasso stuff. When am I ever gonna? I'm always getting lasso now, man.
Yeah, right. Me too. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm
X guard, got it.
Gotcha. Like I'm always looking for that lasso. I'm always trying to get that samurai roll now, right? And I feel like it's just because of their teaching techniques and how they got it. They conveyed it to us is what made it that much better. You know what I mean?
It was probably that one-on-one we got there too. It was much smaller classes.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's only 3 or 4 of us there.
Absolutely.
So and they really got to tell us what we needed to work on.
Yeah, absolutely. And after you left, there was a couple Fridays where it was just myself, right? Because Cody, you talk about this all the time, man. People don't appreciate stuff when it's free, right? They don't appreciate the jiu-jitsu class when it's free. They don't always want to show up. They don't want to be as committed when they're not paying for it, right? So there'd be Friday nights, and Trey always talked about it. He's like, everyone wants to get jiu-jitsu. No one wants to be here on a Friday night, so.
True.
So there'd be Friday nights where it was Trey and myself. And he's like, well, looks like you get another private lesson. What do you want to go over? I'm like, whew.
Not fair.
You guys are going to get it. So, which was great. The one-on-one, the smaller classes is good. But I thoroughly enjoy our larger classes because we get such a vast difference of people and whatnot in our class and techniques. And once again, going back to that mindset on just because you're 4-stripe white belt and
Absolutely.
I'm a 4-stripe white belt does not mean we have the same jiu-jitsu. We go to the same school, learn the same techniques, have the same rank, and we're completely different.
Absolutely.
And it's great. Absolutely love it because it keeps you guessing. Right. Every day is different. Every day you're learning and whatnot.
And I think that last class we had, that had to be the biggest class I've seen
that
in a
was
while.
A huge class.
Yeah.
That was a huge class. So I kind of feel like we're just kind of like rambling on now. So we're gonna go ahead and call it. It's 10 p.m.
What?
on a Friday here. Yeah. We've been going for probably about an hour now.
Yeah,
coming up on an hour. I wanted to make this 45 minutes. We didn't talk too much about ourselves, but I feel like we did pretty good.
Yeah, there's a lot to listen to.
There's a lot to listen to. A lot of good. It's this first episode, like I said, kind of just wanted us to touch bases on who we were and some stories and whatnot and how we feel about jiu-jitsu. And hopefully you guys enjoy it. There will be more. Our next couple episodes are going to be us interviewing people. We would like to get people from the community in on this, and then hopefully one day get people outside the community. But thank you guys so much for listening. It's been real, it's been fun, but it ain't been real fun. So,
thanks, everyone.
Thank you guys so much. See you guys next time on Elbows Tight Podcast.